So thank you so much for being interviewed. So this is for the site project um, for Dr. Ramsey's class. So the first question, can you state your full name for the camera and tell me a little bit about yourself and the work you have done in the field of environmental education?
My name is Carol James, and I worked with communities over the years in assisting with managing the leatherback turtle and the problems associated with slaughtering them for their meat and for eggs on the north and east coast of Trinidad over a number of years. The project started in the mid 1980s and working with communities to build their capacity to manage that resource for their livelihoods, using the turtles live as opposed to killing them for their meat and selling meat. And that has been successful and is one of my proudest, I feel proud about that activity because 30 something years later it is still existing, still sustainable. Community has grown with some tremendously brilliant people. And in fact, one of them at Matura, that's managed by Nature Seekers, is still operational. The community is fully invested in making this work. They actually received various awards internationally and funding from international sources as well as local sources to continue the work. And it's assisted in rural development. So out of what is essentially an environmental project based on a particular species of marine turtles turned out to have the impacts of human developments, rural development, retaining young people in the communities as opposed to all of the young people leaving to look for jobs elsewhere. So I feel proud about that. And much later on, work with saving a particular green space in the community of Tacarigua, where the orange grove savanna, the only green space in a very densely populated area, surrounded by high income, middle income, low income housing in several parts, but everybody uses that savanna for recreation and exercise. Elderly people who have strokes would come out and rehabilitate themselves. You've got various groups of people who play all kinds of sport, football, cricket, hockey, you name it, they're there, track and field. And that was going to be targeted for conversion into a built environment, sporting, so-called sporting arenas, indoor gymnasia, etc., and indoor swimming pool, cricket, football grounds, etc. But we mobilized a community around it, and the communities rallied, and 2 hard years of work, but we were able to take the government to court and won in court. So the community got back its green space. So we were very delighted about that as well. Same problem for an island like Trinidad. Not so much Tobago, but Trinidad is the lack of consciousness about our relationship with our surroundings, our environment. So that people will look at the hills, beautiful northern range, central range, southern range of Trinidad, and talk about all that wasteland, all that bush. You know, we need to develop. In their mind, develop means converting from nature into buildings, roads, infrastructure. And quite often that perception is real in people's minds, and they push their regional corporations, their governmental agencies to develop the areas. Too much bush, too much wildlands, too much wasteland. And I think once we can get education to address those misconceptions about our relationship with the environment. We were talking about some days are so hot. They're hot now because you've cut all the trees down. Most backyards are paved. Most front yards are paved. and you see tiles everywhere, concrete or tiles everywhere in yards. But on a larger national scale, you find that the government reacts to the political pressures and vice versa, the public, and they want to put down all kinds of huge infrastructural development projects in all the communities. And to them, that is development. But using the resources of the communities to enhance human living and human welfare doesn't factor. So that even simple things like ecotourism, there might be opportunities for people to use their environment to attract visitors, not necessarily from overseas, but visitors within their own countries, to enjoy their own space in a creative way. That's not encouraged as much as it should be. Use of natural products for food. To me, that's one of the ways of ensuring that agriculture becomes sustainable. And there's a great guy, somebody maybe you can talk with, Alpha Senon, agri-farmer, who has been promoting sustainable agriculture for a number of years in the south of Trinidad. But he's all over the world now. He's invited. People have seen his work. And one young man, he's probably either late 20s, early 30s, but brilliant. And I would love to see the models that he has been promoting shared across all our islands. Because we can have both. We can have nature as well as development side by side, so-called development, which is in harmony with what our ecosystems can sustain. At the moment, sustainability is definitely not at the bottom line of all the various official development plans. It is about scoring political points. It's about getting voters to think that what I'm offering is the best for you and for your future and children and your children to come. So I'm very concerned that unless we get people putting pressures on government that enough is enough. We want our natural water production, we'd like our natural environment. Our rivers have disappeared. In fact, our government policies of straightening rivers. Watercourses meander for a reason. I mean, our basic geography tells us that. But you find that it was an official government program to straighten watercourses, etc. And people appreciated that. Felt, oh, the river looks better because it has concrete on the sides. Not understanding what nature had been doing for centuries. Well, it's always with us. Spiritually, our roots come from parts of the world, Africa, from Asia, where respect for the environment has always been strong. I remember years ago an African forester telling me that when he grew up, they would always have in their gardens, in their farms, a little area of natural forests left back, almost as an area of not only a spiritual center of their own family enterprise, but also as an area where natural organisms for pollination, etc., would exist in that small area of forest. Pressures of population, of course, over the years tended to move that, to change that, so that the small areas of forest were getting less and less and less, and farms extended throughout all those areas. But that spiritual grounding was still there. I remember as a child, my father was a gardener. He loved to produce our cassava and pigeon peas and all those things. And I was one of the children in my family who loved nature with my dad. So on weekends when he wasn't working, because he used to be the senior station master of the railway system, but whenever he was home, He would be in the garden and I'd be out there with him. And he'd be explaining the value of soil, the value of the earth. And whenever it rained and you got that smell of the rain wetting that soil, it was almost like a spiritual feeling, and we would sit and talk about it. We would talk about him gently digging the holes to put peas and corn. I couldn't understand why corn seeds and pea seeds in the same hole. And he would talk about the production of nitrogen, enriching the soil, so that I forgot which one came first. I think it was the corn that came first, but the peas came after. But they both harmonized the growth of each other over the years. But he'd always relate to the spirituality of nature, the beauty of hummingbirds coming. We had a beautiful hedge with lots of flowers, and hummingbirds and butterflies came too. And we would talk about the creation of God and God in everything. He saw God in everything. And I grew with that, so that I would be walking in the savannah this morning, I'm looking at the clouds and I'm saying, oh my God, thank you for the beauty that you've given us. Some African tulip trees in full blossom. And I said to my walking companions, look at the beautiful, brilliant red flowers against the green foliage and the blue sky in the background. Don't you see the beauty? And they said, God, Carol, you always see that every day, but you always talk about it. And I'm saying, that's me, So that if we take that approach, that what God has created in the planet, the resources that sustain us, the water, the air, the pollinators, which people don't understand the importance of pollinators. We won't have food without butterflies and bees and hummingbirds, because they cross-pollinate our crops for us. And they prevent genetic tiredness and genetic weariness in our plants and our animals and so on. And we have to understand that if we do not protect and preserve that, the sustainability of the planet is not going to be around, without bees, without butterflies. And if we don't have plants to drive the various cycles of nature, right, whether it's the oxygen cycle, the water cycle, the cycle of food production, how are we going to eat, And I feel that education has to be given that spiritual grounding as well, for us to understand that every living thing, and inanimate thing as well, we got all the rocks, etc., that have a role to play in nature, and in terms of our own well-being, our own spirituality. So I just love I appreciate so much what God has given us in every way. And I worry that my grandchildren, who I love and who are around now, I have 15 grandchildren, that their children may not be able to enjoy a quality of life that will give them a sense of well-being, a sense of appreciating their forebears, that their forebears failed them, that they are living in misery because of what we have left. And when I look at the deterioration I could see over the last 50 years, as I said, I'm 70, and I'm looking at the deterioration over the last 50 years. If that rate of deterioration continues, I fear for what they will inherit. And I feel that I'm obligated to work as long as I have breath in my life to continue saving the environment for them, so that they'll be able to understand what a mango tree, a real mango tree, looks like, what the fruit produced by nature tastes like, what coconut trees are like, what the beaches are like. Beaches are now completely eroded. Beaches are now completely eroded because of erosion everywhere, cutting down the land. and the environment is affected to a great extent. Um, so when I project 50 years from now, 2070, I obviously wouldn't be around, but I feel unless we take some drastic action to halt any more physical transformation of our natural forests, what we have is less than one third of our land space. And I think if we look at the relationship between land and human existence, we need a balance of 30% minimum to create the kind of sustainable land space for humans to exist. And I'm talking about simple basic production of air, of water. The quality of air is important and linked to everything in the environment, or plants or trees or rivers. And you look at countries that have to wear masks, you look at parts of India, some huge cities, that people, you look at the air quality, you don't see skies at all, it's all clouded. Beijing, China, you look at that quality of life. And I would hate to think that that's where we're heading. I'm seeing Sahara dust in Trinidad now that reminds me of the air quality in Beijing. Um, so I'm not pessimistic entirely. I'm optimistic that if we can make the necessary changes now, we can stave off that gloomy scenario. But it means that you've got to have a government that does not think in 4-year cycles or 5-year cycles. Elections come every 5 years, and they think in 5-year terms. And who's there to think in 30, 40, 50-year cycles? So that forest that's left adjacent to a community or in a river is required to fill our dams, fill our dams. Last year the reservoirs were, I think, less than 30% filled. They were worried at one point they'd have to import water because there was not enough water, which nature provided for free. So that unless we can have those decisions taken at the official level to change the projection, the course of the direction we're heading, it's not going to be very helpful. Sustainability will depend upon us leaving a certain percentage of our natural environment intact, whether it's our wetlands or forests or seagrass beds, and certainly indigenous knowledge is there. So we've got to take the knowledge of people who have been living in the environment in Brasso Seco, in Matura, in Grand Riviere. It can be sustainable, they can make some money. Matura people are now making money, there's bed and breakfast, etc., based on turtles that are in the environment. But you've got a huge land developer coming in and quarrying. So pretty soon all of that is going to be gone forever. So not optimistic entirely, but definitely we can change the projection of maldevelopment into something positive.
Thank you.
It is scary.
Thank you so much.
Scary.
Did I miss, is there anything you'd like to say? Did I miss anything?
I have faith. I have faith in our young people. As I said, I was in Toronto during the climate action marches, and I sat in the blockade of the Bloor Viaduct when police came to move young people from that blockade, and I was in tears because I just felt that here it is, the young people are here doing their best to save us, and yet our generation isn't even appreciating and listening to what they're saying. And I really think if we pay more attention to what our youth are saying, because it's their lives that are going to be impacted more than we have ever been impacted. They will be impacted the most, and we've got to listen to them. And I look forward very much to interacting more and more with young people and know that they will do something great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.